Dear students, welcome to class 12. And since the corona outbreak, our country is going through a very bad phase, and we hopefully are thinking that it will soon get over with minimum loss. But since you are just entered in class 12, we wish you all the best, and we are going to begin with the e-content. So now it's going to be virtual classes for you all. I hope you learn and you get all the things which we normally learn in our classes. So we are going with the through the first lesson, which is the last lesson. Yes, you got it right. The name of the chapter is The Last Lesson. It is written by Alfonso Daudet. And Alfonso Daudet is a French writer. He's a French novelist and a short story writer. Initially, he was a teacher, and then he realized that he has some passion for journalism, so he quit the teaching profession and joined the League of Journalists. So, this is the last lesson written by Alfonso Daudet. It is going to be interesting, very much interesting, and with a deep message. So please listen to it very attentively. Coming to the theme, this chapter emphasizes the significance of our mother tongue, which empowers the countrymen with unity and expression. The story reveals the unfair practice of linguistic chauvinism. Now, what is exactly linguistic chauvinism? Linguistic means related to your language, something related to your language, and chauvinism refers to unreasonable pride. When you're having pride and you become arrogant because you're having pride, you feel superior and you disregard others as inferior. So, now together we are going to learn what is linguistic chauvinism. Linguistic means language, and chauvinism means having unreasonable pride, thinking that we are superior and others are inferior. So, linguistic chauvinism refers to an unreasonable pride in one's own language and disregarding all other languages as inferior. The chapter is showcasing some values also, which are patriotism, freedom of language, and love for mother tongue. The story reinforces the fact The story reinforces the fact that humans tend to give value to something more when it is completely lost. And in the chapter, it is very well presented. So, what are the characters in the story? There are two characters mainly. Number one, Franz. Franz is a young school going student. He's very careless and he's very lazy. As a person, as a student, he never likes his books and he is not at all having any liking for his teacher. And there is one other character, the character of M. Hamel. He is France's teacher. He teaches French language and he's very strict and he often scolds students for being late, for not doing work, and for anything which is not good. Coming to now, the story starts like this. The young boy, the citizen of France. One day, France. He was going to school. He was late. He had not done his homework and he was scared of being scolded. Who is Franz? Franz is a little boy. He is the narrator of the story. He was a careless and lazy student. One day he started late for the school and Hamel, his teacher, had given homework to learn rules of participles, which, because of his nature, because of his carelessness, he had not done. Since he had not done his homework, he did not want to go to school. He did not want to be scolded by his teacher. He found a reason not to go to school. First, since he has not done homework, he did not want to get scolded. And other reason was that it was such a bright and sunny day. The birds were chirping all around, and he wanted to spend the day outdoors. And he wanted to be around the birds, nature, and wanted, was not willing to go to school. But Franz somehow controlled his temptation. He overcame his temptation, decided to go and attend the school. On his way, when he was going to the school, he passed the town hall an area. When he was passing through the town hall, he noticed that a large crowd has gathered there. And there was a huge crowd in front of the bulletin board. What is a bulletin board? You know, when we watch TV, we watch news channels, there is a news bulletin. Bulletin, you can say, news, information. Board, just like notice board. So, a board which shows you the information, latest news. So, in front of that board, there was a huge, huge crowd. And it was the time when war was going on between France and Prussia. Prussia, Germany, Poland, and there was Austria. Some parts of Austria, Germany, Poland, and some parts of Austria then consisted and became Prussia. So the war was going on between France and Prussia, which is referred as Franco-Prussian War 1870 and 71. So it was going on. It had been going on for more than a year, and all sort of bad news had come through this bulletin board. You know, when war is going on, what sort of bad news we expect? The information about lost battles, the information about, losing certain areas into enemy's hand. So this kind of all sort of bad news had come through this bulletin board only. So he was wondering, he was thinking, what could be the reason? He was somewhere down in his heart, in his mind, he was thinking that there might be a bad news. But since he was already late, he did not have the time to stop there and to find out the reason, to actually be there and notice what is the reason of this huge crowd. So he neglected the crowd and started moving fast towards his school. He walked fast, he was walking fast, he somehow reached school. He was already late. And when he entered the school, when he came close to the school, he found that school was not usual. The school was a lot different than normal days. How we can say that the school was not at all normal? The school did not appear to be usual to France, because normally on normal days there was a lot of hustle and bustle, lot of noise. Even when students used to come to the school, they used to open and then close their desks and sit. So this process also created a lot of noise which could be heard outside. There was more sound of repeating lessons in unison. Unison means in a collective effort. What we observe when there are young children, teacher teaches a line or a sentence and the whole class repeats. So this process called unison, collectively. So the sound was also not there, and the school was quiet. The school was still. There was no noise, no movement at all. What happens? It happens with you also. When you come to the school, you notice there is a lot of sound, there is a lot of noise. Children come, they settle down. There is a lot of noise always. But that day, France did not find anything like that. He thought, what could be the reason why it is all still? And the school appeared that it might be a Sunday morning. Sunday is holiday, and children not go to school on Sunday. The school becomes all still. And Franz was already late. He was expecting that M. Hamel, his teacher, being a strict teacher, being a disciplinarian, he would scold him. But on the contrary, to his surprise, he did not scold Franz. Franz came and sat on his bench. Franz noticed it took, when Franz entered, he was worried. He was terrified. He was full of anxiety because he was late. He was guilt stricken. उसको अपराध बोध था क्योंकि वो पहले से लेट था. So it took a little time. He took a little time to be normal, and then somehow he looked at Mr. Hamill, and what he found that M. Hamill that day was wearing special clothes. Beautiful green coat he was wearing. He was wearing a frilled shirt, and he was wearing a black silk cap. Those were the special clothes he was wearing. And Franz, as a student, knew that these were the special clothes which M. Hamill only wore only on special days like the days of inspection, prize distribution days. So he thought this is a normal day, nothing important, nothing special is going on. So what could be the reason why he's wearing such special clothes? This surprised him. First, he was surprised by all still, no noise. Second, he was surprised by Amhel's appearance because he was wearing special clothes. And finally, he was most surprised by something else. There was something else also in the class which surprised him the most. He looked at the back of the class. There used to be empty benches because the number of students were less, and there used to be more benches than the number of students. And those used to remain empty, vacant. Nobody used to sit over there. But that day, on those empty benches, we used to be empty, otherwise, old villagers were sitting. That school, that class, was meant for young children like Franz. Yes, that was the class for young children like Franz. So what could be the reason why those old villagers were sitting behind the class? Why they were participating? Why they were present? The reason was unknown to him. Then M. Hamill made an announcement in the class. Hamill made an announcement. He said, "My children, this is the last lesson I shall give you. The order has come from Berlin to teach only German in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. Your new master comes tomorrow, and this is your last French lesson. I want you to be very, very attentive." This was the announcement made by M. Hamill. As we can see, this was the last lesson which was to be delivered by M. Hamill, and it was their last French lesson. And mind it, French was their mother tongue. Just assume we all are Indians, and suppose one day some person, some authority from other country occupies us, and the impact comes to the school also, and the order comes that today is the last day when you are going to speak your mother tongue, and from tomorrow onwards, the use of your own mother tongue is prohibited, is going to be prohibited. How will you feel? You will feel bad. We all will feel bad. So we can imagine what was the impact, what could have been the impact of that announcement that was made by M. Hamel, what that says that it was the last lesson of French. And as per the order from Berlin, the order that was received from Berlin, from the next day, there was to be the teaching of German only. French was replaced by German. So, are we able to accept any foreign language in place of in our language? Not at all. Not at all, because we all have an emotional bonding with our mother tongue. We can additionally learn any language, but we are not able to replace our own language, because our language, anybody's mother tongue, reflects the ability to speak, the ability to express, but moreover, our mother tongue is the reflection of our cultural legacy, and our country. France was, at first I told you that France was not a very good student. He was not sincere, he was careless, lazy, and all. But he was a French student. He was a citizen of country. So when M. Hamel made an announcement like this, he was completely shocked. Shocked because as a person, as a citizen, he wanted to be associated with his language. He felt regretful for not learning his lessons earlier. He was feeling sorry. He felt bad that why he had been so careless. He always wasted the time and not utilized the time in learning his own language. All of a sudden, he developed a strong bond with books. Earlier, he did not used to like his books. He did not want to give up the study of his own mother tongue. He developed a feeling of great respect for M. Hamel, who was his teacher. He was shocked that why M. Hamel, he was surprised that why M. Hamel was wearing special clothes. And after the announcement, he connected the announcement to his special clothes. He realized that M. Hamel was wearing special clothes because it was his last day and he wanted to make this last day special. He also got to know that villagers were sitting because they had a reason to sit. Hamel had been teaching in the at the same place for 40 years, and they all were there to show respect for Hamel. They wanted to pay a tribute, they wanted to support their nation, and they wanted to show their respect to Hamel. Now, how Hamel taught that last lesson, detailed description is here. After the announcement, Hamel asked students to recite rule of participles, and then came the turn of France. Hamel asked him to recite the rule of participles as he had already given them homework. But Franz, who realized that he had been given the best by his teacher to recite the rule of participle in the best manner without committing any mistakes, but since he never paid any attention, he did not do his homework, he never took it carefully, so he wanted to recite well, but he could not. Hamel did not scold him. Franz was not able to look up. He was feeling embarrassed, ashamed. Hamel told him that I'm not going to scold you, Franz. And he told that procrastination is a word which means delaying your work, putting your work to tomorrow, and tomorrow never comes. आज के काम को कल पर टालना is procrastination. And Hamel emphasized that France, since you're not able to recite the rule of participle, and the reason behind this is the habit of procrastination. That we normally think that we have plenty of time, we will do it after, we'll do it later, and that is the reason that we generally fail. And he pointed out that this is the reason that we delay work. We never do it sincerely. He made the students and villagers who all were sitting there realize that everybody has to be blamed. First, he blamed parents. Parents, because that time in that country, parents prefer to put their children at work at farms, mills, rather than inspiring, motivating, and pushing them and sending them to the school. He blamed himself also for giving children holiday whenever he wanted to go for fishing. So he said all these reasons are responsible.
I'm having trouble connecting to the internet. Take a look at the help section in your Alexa app.
So now, after this, M. Hamel emphasized the significance, the beauty of French language. He said that French is the most beautiful, the most clearest, and the most logical language in the world. He inspired his children to protect it. He highlighted that if we are able to keep our mother tongue close to us, then it becomes a strong tool to come out of our slavery. After glorifying French, the mother tongue, he gave lessons in grammar, writing, and history of sales. Now, presenting the highlights of the last lesson. This last lesson was a sentimental experience for everybody present in the class. Everybody was sad but effortful to learn. Even Franz, who was initially very careless, lazy, did not want to learn language, but now he was full of regret and wanted to concentrate well for his last lesson. And Franz realized that he was learning so well today. So that also comes to surface that initially he was not effortful. So generally whenever we are not effortful, then learning hampers. And that day, since he was very effortful and full of concentration, he was surprised that he learned everything. Nothing seemed tough. He learned so well. And he found that MML was also in a different mode. He appears to be a person who wanted to give each and everything, each and every bit of his knowledge, his wisdom to his students. Even there were small children, there were young students in the class, and they were also very much involved in learning. And Hamel got emotional. It had been a great trauma for him since he had been teaching at the same place for 40 years, and now, after this order, he had to leave his country, this school. We all can feel that he must have been so heartbroken as he had to leave the very next day. It was, in fact, M. Hamel was sentimental, everybody else was sentimental. It was a tough situation, it was a traumatic experience. And then there comes the end. The church clock struck 12. It was the time to end the last lesson. M. Hamel became sad, dull, but he was courageous enough to put a proud ending of his lesson. He stood. Here, Franz says that he never saw Hamel so tall. Hamel that day appeared very tall to him. What does it mean? It does not mean that suddenly his height became good. It's nothing like that. Even in this situation, Hamel was so proud for his nation, for his countrymen, for his language that he held his head high. What we do when we are full of proud, जब अब हमारे अंदर स्वाभिमान होता है तो हमारा मस्तक गर्व से ऊंचा होता है. And when we feel ashamed, we generally lower down our head. He was very much proud of his country, his nation, his language, his culture, that he held his head high and proud. So at that moment, Franz realized that he appeared tall because Franz was a young student. So here, held his head high means Amhamil was holding his head high in respect of his nation, culture, and language. He wanted to address the students and villagers. He wanted to say something, but he could not because he was emotional. His throat gave up. He took a piece of chalk, went to the board, and wrote Vive la France as big as he could. And Vive la France is, which means long live France. Thus, the lesson ends with a deep message to protect language and nation. It also reinforces that we generally tend to give importance to something. We generally tend to consider the value of something when it is completely lost to us. This should not happen to us. The very first chapter, very inspiring. Now comes what could be the questions. What tempted Franz to stay away from school? Franz was tempted by the bright weather. It was such a bright and sunny day. He wanted to spend the day outdoors, and he did not want to be scolded by Amhamel, his teacher also. What was the order from Berlin? Order from Berlin was that Alsace and Lorraine have been occupied by Prussia, and the order from Berlin says that there would be no teaching of French in those two districts of France, and they would be teaching of German only. Next, why is the order from Berlin called a thunderclap for France? Because suddenly one day he woke up and went to school and he found that his own language had been snatched away. He was not able to learn. There would be no teaching and learning. So definitely it was a thunderclap. Who was sitting on the back benches? Old villagers. Why? Because they wanted to show respect to their nation culture, and the teacher Amhamil, who had been teaching there for about 40 years and more. Why does Amhamil reproach means criticize himself for his students? Because they have not made any satisfactory progress. Amhamil criticized himself for sometimes on some days he wanted to go on fishing and he gave them holidays, so he blamed himself. What shows Amhamil's love for the French language when he says it is the most beautiful, most clearest, and most logical language in the world, and we must guard it. It is a tool to come out of our slavery. What words did Amhamil write on the blackboard? Vive la France, he wrote, which means long live France. So in this way, the chapter comes to an end. I would like to give you a link since you must have not purchased, you might not have purchased books, NCERT books. So here's the link: ncert.nic/lef101.pdf. If you Google it, you write on Google the last lesson NCERT PDF, it will come to you and you just go through it, and then it will be only helpful to you. Thank you, and stay home, stay safe, and spread awareness about social distancing, which is very much required. Thank you.